the it's hard to say because a lot of people, I don't know what you would say on this. A lot of people misunderstand what Loki truly is within the actual theology. There's so many different sort of interpretations and so many wild stories. They find it very hard to actually pinpoint exactly what it is because his characteristics, can sort of represent so many different forms anyway, can't they?
Yeah.
It's hard to sort of they find it hard to define still, but it's interesting to see that they don't really take them. They represent human aspects of humanity within the gods, don't they? But
Yes, that's one thing
yeah,
that a lot of people who practice the Nordic religion would tell you that
mm,
a lot of it is about, experience as a human, you know,
mm,
because all of the gods and portrayed in the Nordic pantheon, apart from a few, were mostly humanoid.
yeah,
But with the question of Loki, it's a very interesting one because not a lot is actually known about the the actual true history that wasn't rewritten about the figure of Loki. A lot of the stories of Loki come from the Prose Edda, which was written with a very Christian bias, and that has led to some people speculating that Loki was basically introduced into the Nordic pantheon, as a Satan figure, as a form of cultural relativism, which is a one key thing that a lot of the Christians, when they were trying to convert people to their religion, would say, "Hey, look at your religion has this, so does my religion." But Loki, I don't believe it that Loki's entirely a Christian invention because he does appear in the Poetic Edda in the famous banquet scene.
mm,
And my speculation is that from that banquet scene, Loki is playing the role of an accuser. He's basically shouting at all the gods in the banquet and telling them all of their shortcomings. And that accusatory sort of role, you could say, is very similar to the Book of Job, where Satan, obviously very much misrepresented by Christians. I mean, because you've looked into Judaism more than I have, and you'd understand that Satan in that role in the Book of Job is nothing as it's portrayed. But Christians probably misinterpreted that, and also the idea of Satan as the accuser is also another misinterpretation. So I imagine they took this accuser role and tried to apply it to Nordic mythology.
mm, yeah,
I mean, and
mm,
also, but still, I do believe that Loki did exist, and Loki was, in the Nordic religion, and he was also a trickster spirit. But I do think that a lot of a lot of the myths around him have either been embellished
yeah, mm,
or altered, mostly for political reasons.
yeah. Giant blood and god blood as well. Um, it's quite unique as well, isn't it? That concept.
Again, that still depends on the source because some of the
Mm,
sources say that Loki was just a giant. He wasn't, actually by birthright in affiliated with the Asia in any way.
wow, I see. So they would have different interpretations of his relationship with them before then, and
Yeah,
other people. Yeah.
yeah, but you also look at the idea of the Prose Edda, and it's kind of ironic that it has this sort of almost Paradise Lost effect, really, because the Prose Edda makes the gods look like assholes, and
Mm,
in some senses, Loki looked more reasonable. Well,
mm,
not reasonable, but showing them all of their shortcomings, which that is an accurate representation of what the figure meant. But also, like Paradise Lost famously was written to quote justify the ways of God to men, and God looks like an asshole in Paradise Lost.
mm,
So again, that sort of like cultural winding is, it's very it seems to always have the same effect. And it's
mm,
also a weird one because when you look at the actual figure of Satan, you can never truly, detach the idea of what Satan is from its original source, and that is that Satan is just an angel of God.
Yeah.
Sometimes referred to as Samael, sometimes referred to as other names. You can never truly detach Satan from what he was originally meant to be, even through Christianity and Islam, and their reinterpretations of the idea of Satan can never truly detach the notion of Satan. We already know the Jewish notion of what Satan is. It's just an angel that tempts. It's a messenger from God. It's a good guy. It worked well if you believe that God is a good guy. If you're an Abrahamic, you obviously would. But the idea of Satan being God's right hand man, that can never truly be detached from the idea of what Satan is. Even when you interpret Satan into the Christian notion, Satan is still very much God's servant, because Anton LaVey said it best. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had because he's kept them in business. The fear of hellfire. It's still, it's still part of the idea of this, this. I don't want to say God's plan because it's a gross misinterpretation of it, but the core aspect of it is still there. And Islam is the same. Ask any Muslim. Well, not any Muslims. I think the more liberal Muslims probably don't want to talk to religion about religion. They just want to hang out. But you ask a religious Muslim, and they'll probably tell you that yes, Iblis, or Satan, is still a servant of God, regardless of the interpretation.
Yeah, for sure.